welcome back to 6 and 6, where we flip through 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, start your timer. African workers on temporary visas in Lebanon are facing an extremely hard time attempting to leave the country, as fears of war begin to seem more realistic. Many of the workers are reliant on their employers to sign their exit visas, and some had to give up their passports upon starting their jobs. From BBC, quote, "The 35-year-old has been working there for the past 14 months. Quote, it was so hard and scary. We were told it wasn't a bomb, but it was a plane breaking the sound barrier," she says. But the sounds were hitting so hard. Her panic is shared by many others in a WhatsApp group of fellow domestic workers, she adds, end quote. Another issue some women face is the increased prices for plane tickets to reach countries such as Kenya and Ethiopia. Turning to China, one of the world's largest refined copper producers, a recent outflow of refined metal has worried investors about potential collapse of domestic demand. The rapid exporting of the metal caused a 16% decrease in the price, with nearly 158,000 tons leaving the country. From Reuters, the robust growth rate runs counter to expectations that domestic production would fall after the country's smelters committed in March to curtail output due to tight raw material supply. It's true that many smelters have taken maintenance downtime in recent months, but the cumulative impact was simply been a moderation of the supercharged rate of expansion. So basically what they're saying here is this surge has also been helped along and increased by inflows of copper into the country, not just the rates of production. And this is especially coming from places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has become a high-volume supplier of the metal. We return to a story covered last week in Venezuela, though the situation has not gotten better, exemplified by another journalist having been arrested by the Maduro government. From the BBC, quote, "Miss Gutia was not told why she was being detained, but her trade union said she had been targeted because of the work she had done in the opposition news site, and both of her parents are opposition politicians." Rights activist Tamara Suji said Miss Gutia's family has not been told where she had been taken. The Maduro government has insisted on the fairness of the election and the integrity of the results, but protesters are still taking to the streets with support of various international groups claiming the potential of fraud during the election. Looking northward, there is a potential shakeup in the presidential election in the United States. Robert Kennedy Jr.'s running mate has provided a glimpse into the mind of the campaign, informing a podcast host that they will not shut the door to any of their options. From BBC, quote, "There's two options that we're looking at. And one is staying in, forming a new party, but we run the risk of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as president and vice president." She goes on to say, quote, "We are going, if we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and, we walk away from that and we expand our base, we are making the decision." She said it was, quote, "not an easy decision." Mr. Trump has coveted the endorsement of RFK and his campaign, even hosting a call with the candidate before the beginning of the RNC. As we go to Oceania, we look at New Zealand. The New Zealand banking landscape may be forced to change, as the New Zealand government has released a new report on the state of the industry and the nature of concentration within it. From Reuters, quote, "The New Zealand Commerce Commission report released earlier found the country's 4 largest lenders, all owned by Australian banks, do not face strong competition in the personal banking sector." It outlined 14 recommendations, including boosting capital for Kiwi Bank and lowering barriers to entry. Multiple key executives have actually lined up to endorse this proposal and said that they would be okay with common sense changes and participating with the government in those changes. Finally, we turn to Europe, where Taylor Swift has closed her Eras tour on the continent at Wembley Stadium. After the cancellation of the Vienna show, fans were paying 10 times the initial offer price of the tickets on resale websites in order so that she could be seen before she returns to North America. From Reuters, quote, "Eras, the first tour to surpass $1 billion in revenue, showcases all 11 of Swift's studio albums in dedicated sections. Her performances in shows stages have been praised by critics. Fans arrived at Wembley dressed in sequins, cowboy hats, forearms covered with friendship bracelets, ready to swap with other Swifties facing after the security checks. And if you want to listen to this podcast on the RSS feed, you can find all the links to that in the link in the description below that like and subscribe button. There's the one to Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine. Also down there, you can find the link to the Twitter, where I post a Twitter tirade every Tuesday and Thursday. And if you want to hear the podcast, it comes out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday on this exact same YouTube channel and on that RSS feed. So, with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe, don't die.